Ladies, gentlemen, and young ladies, it's a diplomatic shock. Washington just hit very hard on the Russian Federation. It's a break, brutal and total, to which Washington surrendered to Moscow. You know that Donald Trump has so much coaxed Vladimir Putin, he created all the conditions for a return effective at peace. But very unfortunately, Moscow remained inflexible. Moscow remained on its position. The cancellation of the meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump is based on Russia's refusal and of to be flexible, to give in little something. That's the problem. Despite all the efforts that have been granted by America, Russia remained firm on on his decision. Russia has not moved even of a single iota. And that's what has pissed off Donald Trump. It was extremely pissed off Donald Trump. Finally, Donald Trump understood that Putin is to play with him. So, in the night yesterday, just after canceling how we will say the meeting, Donald Trump signed the executive order aimed at sanction Russia massively, very severe sanctions. It must be said that these were the sanctions that were desired by Europe and especially by Volodymyr Zelensky, since when it is like that, it's what suits Zelensky. Zelensky does not want the advent of peace in Ukraine. He doesn't want it at all. When the situation gets worse, this is who knows what he likes, because it allows us to continue to stay in power. I tell you, these sanctions are never seen before. As part of this geopolitical conference, it is from this news that we are going to talk about. But before continuing, please share the conference at most in all possible groups. And always remember not to leave a review in the comments, and please click on subscribe. Subscribe if this is your first times to come across my conference. Let's go deep. Yes, Donald Trump is visibly irritated by the attitude of the Kremlin since the suspension of the Budapest summit. So Donald Trump signed an executive order presidential on the night of October 22nd, 2025, imposing new series of massive and immediate sanctions against the Russian Federation. You know, for a long time, he refuses to sanction Russia. Even the US Congress suspended the vote on massive sanctions against Russia, just to give a chance, obviously, to negotiations, to give the peace, because Donald's goal, Trump, was to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia. But unfortunately, Donald Trump understood today that Russia is not all ready, because Russia says it cannot not to give in to American pressure. No, if peace is to return to Ukraine, it will be Russia's initiative. And right now, we are in the process to speak. Prices started to increase in global markets. Yes, these sanctions have worsened the situation. So what is the nature of the sanctions? First, I will see lots of sharing, please. First, we have the total freezing of Russian assets on the territory American. All Russian assets on the American territory has been frozen. Everything. We have secondly the prohibition of transaction for several banks. More transactions for many banks. Russian banks, in any case, there are no more. It stopped. That is to say, these are sanctions of the never seen. Never seen. It's a real declaration of war. Yes. So we also have the blocking of technology, exports, energy, and aeronautics. All this, which is technology and energy, aeronautics, which was exported to the Russia, everything is blocked. I tell you, this is news. Extremely massive sanctions. And so this is a direct message that America sends to Russia. Russia, the message is this. Russia must understand that America's patience has limits. Here is the message that declared Donald Trump. He even hammered home on that. Russia must understand that America's patience has its limits. So that's just some sanctions that we mentioned, whether it is the Russian oil and so on and so forth. The messages are really massive, massive. And so what are the deep motivations that are released by Washington? First of all, it must be said that it is the accumulation of tensions. We are seeing accusations, American against Moscow, for having supported massive strikes in Ukraine and interfere in discussions of peace. So for America, Moscow does not only hit unlimitedly Ukraine, and Moscow interfere in the peace talks so as to delay or cause the peace talks never take place. In plain terms, Donald Trump is in in the process of completely agreeing with Vladimir Zelensky, who always said that Vladimir Putin does not want peace in Ukraine. That's not his goal. Its objective is completely different. It is elsewhere. And so today, Donald Trump recognizes the same thing, that it is Vladimir Putin who does not want it peace. It is Russia that does not want peace because on his side, he put pressure on Ukraine. He told Ukraine to accept even losing 78% of the territory of Donbas. He put the pressure, even if Europe said no, that she did not agree with the fact that Ukraine should cede its territory, but he insisted. In any case, Donald Trump has made his better, and therefore Russia is designated and as a target as being the state or this party to the conflict that does not want to the advent of peace. And so the failure of the meeting Budapest preparatory, Trump considers that the Kremlin is playing for time and refuses the proposed compromise because obviously the Kremlin refused and they said that they will go very slowly, and then there you go. They will not go to a peace agreement based on American pressure. And so Donald Trump is very, very angry, extremely revolted, because the truth is that he doesn't have never stopped reminding him what is said with Putin on the phone is different from what Putin is implementing in practice. Very different. The difference is huge, by the way. So the strategic objective behind these massive sanctions is to show that America retains the ability to punish financially and technologically sound main rival. That's what it means, say. And then on the markets, we have an impact. The ruble began to collapse in Moscow. We are witnessing the collapse of the ruble. It is the Russian currency. The sharp rise in oil and gas. All prices have increased on the global markets. In Europe, there is a concern in Berlin and Paris about the risk of supply disruption energy. In Asia, Beijing calls for restraint. Ground supports Moscow. New Delhi keeps God's silence, but Trump has just rekindled it, a global fire that no one will be able to turn off easily. It must be said that it is even the Western media that they say so. This Brazilian witch, this fire which has just been turned back on there, it will hardly be possible to go out. That is to say, it is the total restart of the conflict, the entry in the dance of the conflict of the Party American, but on the financial level and energy technology. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue to follow this news. Please share it as much as possible. I come back later.